Hey folks, I'm going to talk about some of my favorite books from the past 8 months since the start of the year. And I don't have a few of them physically, so I'm going to learn how to do one of the floating cover pictures. Um, because I do our editing. Um, First, I'm actually not done with this one yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and list it anyway because I love it so much. This is The Bone Orchard by Sara Mueller, possibly Mueller. Um, this book is uh, extremely fucked up, and also a really beautiful, like, exploration of really fucked up societies, I think, is probably the best summary. This is about a woman who has split herself into an assortment of different personalities, each of which experiences a specific part of the world. And the issues she starts to run into when she is told to solve a murder. Um, this book features a lot of my very favorite things, which are almost all also trigger warnings. Um, this book gets a lot into magical obedience and how that works and how to get around it. Nothing speaks to me more than a story about someone rules lawyering a magical obedience spell. Um, this book deals a lot with sex work and some of the darker elements of sex work, as well as some of the darker sides of um, not just war, but like aggressive imperialism. So be aware. That being said, um, the the concept of having a person solve a murder when she literally doesn't have access to all of her own brain, mm, so good, so creative. I'm really enjoying the hell out of it. Um, okay, the other series that I have physically with me is A Strange and Stubborn Endurance and All the Hidden Paths, which are the Tithenai Chronicles. Um, these are much lighter. Uh, Not that that's a high bar, but these are a arranged marriage in a fantasy world in which one of the nations involved in the political marriage is um, very conservative and doesn't believe in gay people, kind of philosophically, but also in the sense that it's illegal. And the other nation is really chill about everything. And it focuses a lot on the kind of culture shock experience of one of the characters going from a very conservative environment where he's hidden the fact that he's gay his entire life to a place where like there's a specific word in the language for a husband of a husband. Um, it's a great combination of like political scheming and a murder mystery and some like weird magic. The magic isn't very central. This is part of my like ongoing. I want to read a totally normal plot line, but have magic in the background. Category of favorites. Um, the main characters do extremely little magic. It's just there. Um, but it also has a great romance in it. It deals a lot with trauma and like healing from it. Content warning for some sexual assault in this first one. Um, and yeah, I don't know. If you want to read something I recommended, but you don't want to read something that I initially describe as, yeah, it's really fucked up, this is a good one. Um, this is by Meadows because I forgot to mention this. Um, all right, I'm now out of physical books. I also read Witch King this year by Martha Wells. Um, Highly recommend. It's just a good time. Bad things do happen to people, but they're fairly minor in the grand scheme of things. A few people die. It's fine. Um, Witch King is essentially the premise of what if you lived through a whole fantasy plot line and collected a whole found family and did the whole 9 yards, and then someone locked you in a basement for a year. Um, that's pretty much what happened to the main character. And the plot of the book is essentially him going around and like collecting his found family from all of the places they've gotten off to in the past year. I really love it because I love a wildly overpowered character, and the main character Kai is just silly powerful. Like it's just so ridiculous, and I love it so much, and it's incredibly well handled in that like he has a very specific set of powers, and those powers are wildly useful. But doesn't just sort of develop new powers as the plot demands. And a lot of the plot is about his um, emotional journey, both over the course of when the book is taking place and also how he ended up in the position he was in the first place of being locked in a basement for a year. Um, yeah, that one's really delightful. If you liked Murderbot and you like fantasy at all, you should read those. Um, I think that's legitimate. Um, and the other book I was going to talk about is The Twisted Ones um, by T. Kingfisher, who I discovered in the last year and have read, I think, all of her horror novels since then. Um, highly recommend. Highly recommend. Extremely weird, very fucked up. The Twisted Ones in particular is close to my heart because I read it in probably the real world equivalent that inspired the fantasy situation in that novel. Um, of dealing with the estate of a relative who you hated a lot. um, and the book is largely about the main character dealing with her grandmother's house after her grandmother's death, and finding out increasingly that her grandmother was perfectly normal. Her grandfather was into some stuff, um, and deals a lot with the concept of like, yeah, what if there was a world right next door that you could totally get to if you went to the right place at the right time, and what if it was the worst place imaginable? Um, they're not technically a series, but I do also recommend The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. Very similar in that it's about what if there was a world right next door that you could get to and it was a nightmare all the time. Um, highly recommend. I love that shit. Um, I think that's kind of what I've got for favorites thus far. I could sit here and talk for an hour, but I'm not going to.